My parents had a secret they never meant for me to know. They spoke French behind my back. Thought I couldn't understand. I could. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I acted. 6 hours later, they were calling nonstop and screaming. If you've ever felt like the extra chair at your own family's table, you'll get it. It doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in slow like dust in a corner. You stop noticing it until it's everywhere. You get used to being talked over. To the glances when you wear something not quite right. To the compliments handed out to someone else. You get used to being the quiet prop in someone else's perfect portrait. A convenient shadow. A good place to hide secrets. I'm Jade, 19, and tonight was my mother Claire's birthday. 68 and still throwing parties like she's auditioning for a spread in Architectural Digest. Vintage champagne, hand-picked Italian menu, a live string quartet tucked somewhere behind the potted palms. Everything was flawless, just like it always is in their multimillion-dollar mansion. Even the air smelled expensive, like something I probably couldn't afford to breathe. I showed up on time. Of course, no one expected me. Invitations were for guests. I'm just the younger daughter. The unfortunate wrinkle in their otherwise symmetrical family branding. I wore a green dress. Simple. Elegant. Not to impress anyone, I just wanted to feel nice. Pretty even. Is that what you decided to wear? That was the first thing Claire said. Not hi. Not you look lovely. Just a once-over in that. Camille, my older sister, 3 years older, light years more golden, snorted. Just loud enough for me to hear. Classic. I smiled and said nothing. Silence has always been my sharpest tool. And deep down, I knew they were going to say something eventually. Even if they didn't mean to. Camille, of course, was in Dior. No idea how much the jewelry cost. Don't care. You look stunning as always, someone at the table told her. My mother beamed like it was meant for her. I handed Claire her gift. A small box. Inside, a brooch from the 1950s, rare vintage, the kind she once mentioned losing in passing. I'd spent weeks hunting it down. She took the box without looking at me. Oh, thank you, darling, she said, and passed it straight to Camille. Camille nodded with that fake little smile she saves for moments like this. Didn't even bother to open it. Then someone important walked over. One of the people Claire actually considers family, and I disappeared again. I found myself near the side window. The same one I used to hide by as a kid. Different carpets, fancier wallpaper, but same role. The girl standing in the room, but never quite in it. When the pear tart came out, I heard them. Standing by the fireplace. My mother. My father. Camille. Camille had that sneer she gets when she thinks she's being clever. They were speaking quietly, but not quiet enough. In French. Like always. Thinking I didn't understand. But I did. I've been understanding for a while now. Claire glanced in my direction and said, "She looks ridiculous in that cheap little dress. I'm so tired of her. If it weren't for her money. Thank God she's leaving tomorrow." They didn't hit me. But that's exactly what a well-aimed hit feels like. I stood there, champagne glass in hand, $200 a bottle in my palm, 19 years of emptiness in my chest. What did I expect? Why was I even here? I hadn't planned to act that night. Really. I'd brought the documents to talk, calmly, after the party. No drama, no scene. I still thought maybe we could talk like a family. Because they raised me. Even if it was without warmth. I still believed family was sacred. Even if I always felt cold in mine. But in that moment, hearing them speak so casually, so effortlessly cruel, I realized I was never their daughter. I was a project. A financial convenience. A temporary burden they were paid to carry. They'd been faking it. All these years. For the money. I'd suspected for a while. But now I knew. So I did something I hadn't planned to do in front of everyone. I took out the black folder, documents inside, everything ready. Walked across the room. Not to the quiet end where I'd been seated, but straight to their glittering center. To her throne. I placed the folder on the table. Clean. Deliberate. Claire paused mid-sentence, glanced at the folder, then at me. Her face changed. She froze like I'd just walked in holding a grenade. "What is this?" my father asked. His voice always had that emotionless weatherman tone. Even now. "It's for you," I said. And I looked him in the eye. Then her. Then Camille. And I turned and walked out. Across the whole room. Not rushing. Not running. Calm. Proud. Behind me, silence. Then whispers. Then footsteps. Someone calling my name. But I was already on the stairs. I didn't care to see their faces when they opened that folder. Didn't care to watch their hands shake as they tried to keep up appearances in front of their perfect friends. Didn't need to be there when it finally sank in. I knew. And their game was over. When I stepped outside, the air felt different. I stood on the steps of their perfect house, in a dress they hated, and felt something finally slide off my shoulders. Something heavy. Something old. I didn't know exactly where I was headed, but I knew this much: I was done being furniture. They had 19 years of me. Now it was my turn. I couldn't sleep that night at the hotel. Not because of the drama. Not because of the folder I'd dropped like a bomb on the dining table. I kept thinking about the pear tart. It tasted exactly like it did when I was little. Sweet. Soft. And never meant for me. Then the memories started crawling in. Childhood. Or as I now call it, the masterclass in silent isolation. I must have been 8. Camille, 2 years older, eternal favorite, got some reward for something. A pony, I think. I got a dress. Well, new. For me. It had previously lived a full life with Camille. But I was thrilled. Genuinely. It was pink with white buttons and a little stiff collar. Mom said it looked better on me than it ever did on Camille. Then she added, "If you keep it clean, maybe you'll get more of her clothes." I took that as praise. From the outside, our life looked spotless. Massive house with pillars. Private school with uniforms like we were auditioning for the crown. Piano lessons. Painting tutors. Family photos in front of Versailles. In every picture, I'm standing just slightly off to the side. Purse clutched tight. That polite, so happy to be here smile. Camille in the center. Mom and Dad beaming in her direction. Camille did horseback riding. She had her own room with a projection ceiling and soft blue curtains that the whole family picked out together. I got the room next to the laundry. It smelled like fabric softener and vibrated from the washing machines. Camille's birthday? Yacht party. Live music. Fireworks. Mine. You're 10, Jade. Don't be ridiculous, Mom said when I asked about hiring a party clown. And then came the classic. Why waste money? She said that a lot. Why waste money? It was her favorite phrase for saying no to me. Eventually I stopped asking. To be fair, my school was still good. Private. Decent. Just noticeably cheaper than Camille's. They sent her to a Connecticut boarding school with senators' kids. I went to the local prep. You're home anyway, it's easier. College? I picked one myself. Affordable. Scholarships. Part-time job. The full DIY student package. Mom called it independent. You're such a smart girl, she'd say. Funny how compliments can sound like budget cuts. Camille spent every summer in Europe. I followed along via Instagram. Once, she brought home gold earrings from Paris. I got a notebook with the Eiffel Tower on it. You love writing, Mom said with a smile. I thanked her. Then locked myself in the bathroom and cried. I didn't even know why. I just felt off-brand. Like a knockoff version of the family iPhone. Functional but glitchy. They spoke French in the house. Not all the time, just when they didn't want me to understand. Camille had lessons from native tutors, language camps, immersion trips. Me. You're not really wired for languages, sweetheart. And you won't need it anyway. Not understanding your own family is one kind of lonely. Having them switch languages the moment you walk in the room is a whole different level. It's like being furniture. I remember breakfasts where Dad would quote poets to Camille, while Mom corrected her accent. I'd sit there with my yogurt, pretending not to hear their world, one I was never invited into. Once a year, maybe twice, these very polite French visitors would show up. Elegant. Well-dressed. Holding clipboards and kind smiles. On those days, I got brushed, dressed, gifted something soft. A stuffed animal. A new pair of shoes. Mom called me sunshine in front of them. They'd ask me to say, "Thank you, Jade," with a French accent. One woman once asked if I was learning French. Mom laughed like it was adorable. We try, but she's more of a math brain. I was sitting right there. Smiling. Nodding. Clueless. Back then, I thought maybe they were relatives. Now I realize, probably caseworkers. Monitors. People tasked with checking that I was okay. That I was being treated well. Some French phrases stuck with me long before I knew what they meant. Toujours en retard. Always late. Mom would sigh it whenever I was even a minute behind. Pas comme elle. Not like her, with a glance toward Camille. Camille liked to throw in, "Elle est bizarre, she's weird." With that smug tone like I was just a strange roommate, not her sister. I didn't get the words then. But I got the tone. The eye rolls. The smug looks. At first it stung. Later it was just background noise. But around 14 something clicked. I decided I wanted to know. Not for school. Not for fun. Just to understand them. I started small: movies. Books. Free apps. Online courses. Quietly. Inconsistently. I wasn't trying to get fluent. I just wanted to solve the puzzle that was my family. But they didn't speak textbook French. It was fast. Colloquial. Parisian. Even after years, I barely caught the flow. But sometimes, I heard just enough. Heard my name. Caught a phrase. Understood just enough to know. They were talking about me. And it was never kind. When I was 17, I had appendicitis. Not life-threatening, but urgent enough for an emergency surgery. I was hooked up to N4, barely conscious, when Mom handed me a paper and said, "Just in case they need me to make decisions while you're out." Totally standard. Sign it. I signed. Didn't read it. Told myself it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Sometimes I think my whole life was made up of almosts. Almost love. Almost belonging. Almost the truth. They didn't beat me. They didn't scream. They didn't lock me in a closet. I wasn't Cinderella. I had clothes. Food. Wi-Fi. But something still curled up tight inside me every time I saw how effortlessly Mom hugged Camille. How she laughed at her jokes. How she'd stroke her hair like it was the most natural thing in the world. She never touched mine. Not once. Dad. He was furniture. Tall. Cold. Always frowning. He didn't yell. Not because he was kind, he just wasn't involved. Worked late. Left early. Mom called him reliable. I called him absent. He praised Camille. Told me to sit up straight. By the time I turned 18, I knew something was off. Especially when my big birthday surprise was a cake. One. Cake. Camille got a car. With a bow. "You don't drive," Mom told me with that pitying smile. "Why would you need one?" We thought our love was enough. That same day, I spotted a receipt from a jewelry store, Mom's name on it. Over $5,000. A gift. For Camille. The same Camille who vanished to a party an hour later and left me with, "You're an adult now. Time to stop being dramatic." I wasn't being dramatic. I was taking notes. Literally. On my phone. In my head. Who said what? Who did what? And how much it cost. They lived big. Just not with me. Opera tickets? Mom and Camille only. Tuscany vacation? You hate the heat. Luxury spa weekend in the mountains? You'll catch a cold, sweetie. Sometimes I thought maybe I just didn't fit. Too quiet. Or too loud. Too weird. Too something. Maybe I really wasn't enough. Maybe I didn't deserve to be loved. So I tried harder. Wrote them letters from summer camp. Made handmade gifts. Sat quietly at dinner while they talked about things I wasn't invited to understand. All I ever wanted was to feel like I belonged. But they were speaking a language I wasn't allowed to learn. Because I've come to realize truth doesn't like translation. They didn't want me to know. So I learned their language. To understand why I always felt like a guest in my own life. And I ended up learning way more than I ever bargained for. Truth doesn't always crash into your life like a thunderstorm. Sometimes it sneaks in quiet like a cat and sinks its claws in when you least expect it. I never meant to become some amateur detective. But at some point you realize if something has felt off your whole life, chances are, it is off. I couldn't prove anything. Not until a man showed up who helped me start putting the puzzle together. His name was Thierry Lambert. I remember the day clearly. I was in a cafe in San Francisco, hunched over my laptop, writing out the post-finals fog. I'd stayed in the city for break, too tired to go home. He walked in looking like he'd taken a wrong turn on his way to lecture at the Sorbonne. Tweed blazer. Silver hair. Every gesture precise. And not a single fake note in his voice. "Mademoiselle Jade," he said, with a French accent you could slice butter with. "My name is Thierry Lambert. I'm your father's attorney. Your biological father." I nearly dropped my coffee. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside, a copy of a will. A photo. A letter. Everything it took to unravel my entire idea of who I was. "Your father, Patrick Montreal, died in a car accident with your mother, Eloise. You were just a baby, barely a year old. Mountain road, brake failure. Instant." He paused. Gave me space. Then dropped the next part, as gently as he could. "Your mother was the sister of Paul Duval, the man you grew up calling your father." I said nothing. Because, honestly, what do you say to that? Cool, cool, cool. So the people who raised me aren't even my people? Thierry continued. "Your father left everything to you. A villa in France. Investments. His stake in a business. At the time the trust was created, the assets were valued at roughly 20 million euros. I blinked at him. "I'm sorry, what?" He nodded like this was Tuesday, and he was ordering soup. "And he was clear. Until your 18th birthday, your legal guardians would be Paul and Claire Duval. They were permitted to manage the funds, but not spend them on themselves. Only for your education, housing, health. All expenditures had to be approved through an outside observer. Let me guess you? Yes. I was appointed as oversight, and for a while they followed the rules. Submitted reports. But right around your 15th birthday, the communication stopped. I believe they convinced the court everything was stable, and quietly disappeared off the radar. Why didn't you come sooner? Your father insisted that until you turned 18, all contact had to be through official channels. He was worried someone might try to exploit you. But I hired investigators. I did try to reach you. He looked at me carefully. By law, I had to contact you directly once you turned 18. It took me over a year to find you. Why so long? I was barely breathing. The world I knew had started to feel like a cardboard cutout. He sighed. I sent letters. Repeatedly. To the address where you lived with the Duvals. Through the court. Even through your school. No answers. Not one. Then I called. Each time I was told you were busy, or traveling, or no longer there. Eventually I realized they were blocking you from me. I set my cup down slowly. You think they intercepted the mail? I don't think. I know. It happens when there's this much money on the table. Suddenly I remembered my father yanking a letter out of my hand at school, mumbling, "Not important." And Mom flat out refusing to show me any family paperwork. Even when I needed it to apply for a scholarship. They were using my money, weren't they? Thierry didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his case and pulled out another folder. We've started the audit. Even at this early stage, we can see significant misuse of funds. Luxury vehicles. International travel. Camille's schooling in Europe. Private healthcare. Designer clothes. Jewelry. All paid from your trust. And you had no idea. What's more, after your 18th birthday, they continued accessing the account using a power of attorney. I nodded. That power of attorney. I'd been sick, hooked up to Infor, when Mom handed me the form and said, "It's just in case the bank needs something while you're recovering." I believed her. I always did. If you've ever handed someone a bomb disguised as a gift, you'll get it. The folder I dropped in front of Claire, Paul, and Camille didn't explode immediately. It detonated 6 hours later, right around dawn. I'd been asleep for maybe 2.5 hours when my phone started ringing like it was owed a personal apology. First up, a voice memo from Camille. "You've completely lost it. What even was that? You humiliated us in front of everyone. Do you even realize how that looked?" I didn't answer. Just hit delete. Then came Claire. 13 calls in 2 hours. Voicemails. Texts. A photo of a crayon drawing I made at age 5 with "To Mommy" scribbled in the corner. One voicemail started with, "Jade, sweetheart, we've always loved you. Everything we did was for you. That lawyer, he's twisted you against us." I made it halfway through. When she said, "We were the best family you could have had," I nearly threw the phone. Instead, I silenced it. Paul didn't call. He sent one text. "We can fix this. Call me." I didn't. But my lawyer? He sent official notices to their home. Account freezes. Audit launch. Power of attorney revoked. Fraud case filed. I saw the copies. Elegant envelopes. Legal ice in every line. The kind of paperwork that makes perfectly styled moms suddenly look deflated. Next day, the bank called them. Then the trust. Then the board members who used to sip champagne with Claire and Paul and pretend not to notice their spending habits. Everyone said the same thing. Jade Montreuil is in control now. Cue the meltdown. I started getting calls from people I barely remembered, family, friends, distant cousins, even my old English teacher who once forgot my name on report card day. All with the same tone. "You're such a smart girl, Jade. But is this really how you handle family matters?" Then came the guilt tour. Flowers at my door. Notes that read, "You'll always be our daughter. We love you no matter what." One afternoon, Camille herself showed up on my doorstep, teary-eyed, holding a box of macarons like we'd just argued over birthday decorations. I didn't open the door. I turned up the music and slid a copy of the court notice under the crack. Thierry insisted on security. He said people like that, when they start losing control, can get unpredictable. I didn't believe him, until I saw the security footage of Claire trying to sneak into the building through the service entrance. That night, the cops installed cameras. The next day, the smear campaign started. I was ungrateful. I'd ruined the family. I was just bitter, jealous, unstable. They were furious, because I'd stopped being their obedient little investment. And then the audit came in. And that's when I really got angry. Over the years, they had siphoned off more than 5 million euros from my trust. Quietly. Disguised as unexpected expenses. They transferred ownership of the villa, my villa, to a shell company and started renting it out. The money? Offshore accounts. Switzerland. They took out loans using the trust as collateral. Paid for medical care, none of it mine. Bought jewelry. Art. Designer everything. It was all hidden. Buried under fake invoices, forged signatures, and for Jade's benefit line items. If you hadn't started digging, Thierry said, none of it would have surfaced. Under proper management, your trust should have doubled. It's sitting at 14 million now. It should be 30. They didn't just steal. They strangled it. Every dollar they didn't take, they kept from growing. That's why we're taking them to court. Claire tried the tears. At the hearing, she sobbed. I only wanted Jade to live well. Everything I did was out of love. Paul was quieter. Way too quiet. Like someone who already knew the ending but was hoping for a miracle on appeal. The court didn't buy it. Despite their age, the judgment was clear. Paul got 2 years probation and was ordered to repay 2.5 million euros. The amount we could trace directly to him. Cars, luxury vacations, Camille's education, medical bills, jewelry. The rest? Dispersed through shady channels. Buried in fake accounting, laundered through gifts, vanished in taxes. The civil court's still chasing that trail. Total damage, over 6 million. Their accounts are frozen. The house? Under partial seizure. Claire got a year of probation and a heavy fine. She was found guilty of fraud, coercion, and misuse of power of attorney. She's the mother, her lawyer argued. The judge didn't blink. Exactly, he said. Which makes it worse. But maybe the real punishment didn't come from the court. It came from their world. Claire's inner circle. The women who used to fawn over her vintage china and saffron risotto stopped calling. Her yoga studio paused her membership. Paul was ignored by his golf club. Camille scrubbed her socials clean, no last name, no tagged photos. Turns out, anonymity isn't just for whistleblowers. At first, she tried to spin it. Gave an interview where she said, I always knew something was off with Jade, and my parents did the best they could with such a difficult child. No one bought it. She lost access to the fund. Her contracts dried up. Last I heard, she's renting a studio uptown. No stylist. No chauffeur. A job. A real job. I'd say I felt sorry for her. But I don't. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about the money. It was about finally hearing silence inside my own chest. And knowing I'd made that happen. And then I went to France. It wasn't running away. It was coming home, to myself. To where it all began. I found the house from the video, my parents' house. It sat on the edge of a quiet village, surrounded by vineyards and air that somehow felt older than anything I'd ever breathed. Waiting for me, there was a package Thierry had left with a local notary. Photos. Letters. One envelope was from a woman with kind eyes. My mother. Eloise. In the letter, just a few lines. You've just been born. I'm scared I won't be enough, you're so small. But you're my little miracle. I look at you and my heart melts. Be happy, our sweet girl. And then the photo. She's holding me. He's beside her, smiling. I wasn't an accident. I wasn't a burden. I was theirs. When the neighbors heard who I was, some of them cried. A woman named Marianne invited me into her home. Eloise was sunshine, she told me. She sang in the mornings even when it rained. She dreamed of a daughter. Of you. She wrote letters to you in notebooks. They still existed. The pages were yellowed with time, filled with neat handwriting. My sweet girl, if you ever read this. I read them sitting in the same garden where my father filmed the video. And every time I cried. Not from grief, but from recognition. I met one of my father's old business partners. He showed me pictures, my parents laughing, hugging, holding me. They were happy. I came from love. I'm not an orphan. I'm not an outsider. I'm the daughter of Patrick and Eloise. I'm the heir to light, not lies. I came back a month later. Different. Now I live in an apartment with windows that open to the park, shelves full of books, and a new phone number. Everything from before is in a folder marked, "Do not reopen." Sometimes I still dream about them. Not my real parents, the people who tried to play the role. I wake up smiling. Because they don't get to own any part of me anymore. And on the days it's hard, when I feel that old familiar ache, I write letters. To the little girl who stood in the corner and thought something was wrong with her. I write, you are good. You are worthy of love. You are not background noise in someone else's life. You are an entire world. And one day you'll learn the truth. And it won't hurt. It'll set you free. If you've made it this far, thank you. It means something in this story hit home. This isn't just some drama about rich people and betrayal. It's about what happens when the people you called mom and dad turn out to be the ones who used you. And you learn not to hate them, but to choose better for yourself. If any part of this felt familiar, if you've ever felt out of place, tried too hard to earn love, or gotten tired of being the easy one, say something. I'd love to hear it. And if you liked this story, stick around.